What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of exciting stories to go over here this week. There's a lot of electrification stuff, but I'm going to save that for a little bit later and get to some of the exciting sports cars first. So Porsche this week, good old Porsche. They revealed the 2022 911 GT3 Touring this week. And so it's the more subtle and comfortable option for those that don't want to stand out quite as much, but still want that sweet 4-liter flat 6 engine that revs to 9,000 RPMs. In addition to swapping out the wing for the regular 911's automatic spoiler, it also gets a new front grille that's a bit more mellow, and chrome trim has been added to make it a little bit classier around the windows and stuff, although you can get the usual black trim as an option if you'd like. But yeah, it also still has the aggressive vents in the hood there because those are functional and needed, so it does have that stands out a little bit, but otherwise, you know, pretty low profile and looks so good. This is always my favorite version of the GT3. I loved the package on the last generation, and this one seems to do the same great stuff. So it runs the same 502 horsepower and 346 pound-feet of torque from that 4-liter engine as the regular GT3 still. It's also still available with either the PDK 7-speed automatic or the 6-speed manual, unless you live in California, where sadly the manual isn't allowed. So supposedly the manual is somehow louder than the PDK car, and so it doesn't meet the noise regulations in California. But according to Car and Driver, the law is outdated, and I guess Porsche was expecting them to update it in time, and they didn't, so it's kind of like a miscommunication of like this limbo thing. I guess maybe the law will be changing soon. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but it sounds like Porsche is working with California authorities to try and figure this out, because I'm sure, I mean, California is one of the biggest markets for Porsche, and I'm sure that, you know, since the take rate here in America for manuals is so strong with Porsches and their owners, I'm sure this would be a big hit for the manual transmission if this was not allowed. So hopefully there's a workaround here. Otherwise, I just hope that, you know, a lot of these buyers don't just go for the PDK, just buy out of state. As long as you can register it in California still, you know, buy in Nevada, buy, you know, any of the surrounding states there, and still get your manual transmission GT3 Touring. So fingers crossed for that, or hopefully they just get it figured out and you can just buy it in California. But anyway, on the inside here, it differs from the regular GT3 by giving you leather as standard instead of the Alcantara that you get everywhere on a regular GT3. Although, again, you can customize everything if you're willing to pay and, you know, get everything exactly how you want it, including Alcantara everywhere if that's what you want. But yeah, so anyway, prices are going to be starting at $162,450, including destination, which is the exact same as a regular GT3. I really love the way Porsche does pricing here recently with, you know, there's no upcharge, you know, it's just kind of a wash because you might have a little bit nicer stuff with the leather over the Alcantara, but then, you know, you lose the wing and stuff, so you save a little bit of money. You know, the manual's a no-cost option with Porsche, which is also great. You know, I mean, yeah, it's $162,000, but for what you're getting, it's a very special car for money that is, you know, not insane when you consider all the, you know, supercars and hypercars, which I think, honestly, half of them would be less fun to drive than this thing. But anyway, it's going to be starting to arrive in the US early next year, so cool to see that. Ferrari has announced that their new sports car is going to be revealed on June 24th, so just next week here, and they say it will be revolutionary and will define fun to drive. So, you know, bold claims here, and what we've heard, you know, the rumors are this is going to be the electrified V6 powertrain for an entry-level Ferrari that, you know, I think the long-rumored Dino, or it's going to be kind of like a spiritual successor to the Dino models of the 70s, and that's kind of what they're going to be going for here with this, supposedly. It will also compete against the McLaren Artura, and, you know, they're also doing the same thing with a 6-cylinder and electrified thing. So it's rumored to only be rear-wheel drive, so I don't think it's going to be kind of all-wheel drive thing. I think the NSX still has that market cornered for now. But, yeah, we'll have more details on that next week, so cool to see that. And some other electrified performance news from Italy, actually. Maserati has begun teasing the new all-electric GranTurismo. I believe they said there's going to be other variants that will have some type of gas powertrain as well, but this is the electric version of the GranTurismo that's coming later this year, supposedly, and it looks like it's going to be borrowing a lot of styling from the MC20 up front there in particular, but it looks like it's going to be pretty beautiful, like Maseratis usually are, and so I'm excited to see more of that. Stellantis is also having some news here from Italy here. So they're reportedly planning to build 4 electric vehicles in Italy starting in 2024, according to an Italian union statement. So the existing Melfi plant that's in Italy is going to be overhauled to make the 4 vehicles for multiple different brands within Stellantis. So the report from Reuters says that it's going to be medium segment electric vehicles, and the production capacity is going to be about 400,000 vehicles total per year. So I mean, it's going to be a mass market type of thing, and so I'm guessing we're talking about some type of, mid-sized compact crossover, something like that is what we can expect here. But, based on the models that are currently built in Italy for Stellantis, this could be like small crossovers for Jeep, Fiat, Dodge, or even Alfa Romeo potentially. So we'll have to wait and see. Of course, with the electric thing, it's very easy to swap stuff out and make it very flexible so they can all have unique styling and just share the same kind of skateboard thing underneath. But we'll have to wait and see how that develops here in the next few years. The Detroit Bureau also has a very bold report this week, claiming to have an anonymous source familiar with Dodge's product plans that claims that Dodge is currently working on an electric vehicle that's most likely an electric muscle car that will be the fastest Dodge ever. So that's a bold claim, and along with that claim means a bunch of different things. So it means it's going to be faster than a Demon, because that is currently the fastest model they have or have ever made. So that means you're going to have a 0 to 60 time supposedly under 2.3 seconds. That would have to be the requirement, and a quarter mile time under 9.65 seconds, which sounds like great competition for the new Tesla Model S Plaid that was just revealed this past week. And transitioning right into that Tesla story. So Elon Musk rolled out the new Model S Plaid this past week, and it's very impressive, even if the styling is still basically the same, and I don't know why they don't change the styling. I know it kind of helps resale, and maybe they just don't care. It still seems to sell okay, but I don't know. I just feel like actually changing the styling would really help them. Regardless, this vehicle is very impressive, and the claims are very bold too. So Elon here claimed a 0 to 60 time under 2 seconds, which he claims this car can do it over and over again and it doesn't get winded. That's thanks to, he says, a new heat pump and a new radiator that's doubled in size. And also a new motor, which I'll get to in a minute. But quarter mile time is equally crazy, doing the run in 9.23 seconds for the quarter mile, which means, yes, it will outrun that Dodge Demon and, basically everything else out there. Although, there was stuff like the new Rimac I covered last week, which actually might do a slightly faster 0 to 60. We'll have to wait and see. But he says this acceleration is so intense that it really hits you in the limbic system, and that his aim was, how can I make a spaceship a car? And I mean, even the P100D that I reviewed back at the end of 2019 was really, really wild, and actually made me a little bit lightheaded just doing an acceleration in that from 0. So I can only imagine this thing being crazier. I think these electric vehicles, especially from Tesla, are going to get so fast that I'm going to be nervous to do my acceleration reactions, because I'm going to have to prepare myself for how fast these things are going to be, have a light lunch and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, to achieve these crazy performance numbers, the Plaid has a new motor design that can spin at about 20,000 RPM and requires carbon sleeved rotors that he says is a super hard thing to do, because carbon and copper have very different rates of thermal expansion, and it was so hard, in fact, that they actually had to invent the machine that makes those rotors and makes those motors. So all kinds of wild stuff. It also has a top speed of 200 miles per hour and 1,020 peak horsepower. It can also still have really great range as long as you're not hammering on it, thanks to a 0.208 drag coefficient in the real world, not in a wind tunnel, he says, which is an important distinction. This is while it's rolling outside, with the wheels spinning and stuff. That's the drag coefficient. And also, of course, it has a huge battery, so it can do between 400 and 420 miles of range on a charge. He wasn't super precise with that number. And I think that's something that will change a little bit. And they always make little tweaks here and there to the software to change those range, estimates. But anyway, it's also capable of getting 187 miles of range in just 15 minutes with the highest level of supercharging. And also helping with efficiency is a new heat pump, which they said can do a 30% more range in cold climates and uses 50% less energy. So he suggested that using the heat in the wintertime should cause very little degradation to the range. So hopefully, those who live in snowbelt states, you'll have a little bit of a better, performance there, even when it's super cold. On top of all this, he made some bold safety claims as well, saying, we think we can get to the lowest probability of injury of any car, and summarizing the car as faster than any sports car, any Porsche, safer than any Volvo in the same car. He also revealed other small details too, like it's going to have a new sound system and new acoustic glass for a quieter ride, along with, we've already seen the new screens and the crazy steering wheel and stuff, which all is sticking around. He's defended all that stuff and said the car is super smart. It's always going to know what you want to do, and he's designing it for, this driverless world, and he was talking about how the processor is better for the new screen so that it's going to have, really good graphics for gaming and all this kind of stuff, because he's just assuming everyone's just going to be playing on their screens and not paying any attention to the road, which is terrifying and not something you should be encouraging in the year 2021 when this stuff is still in its infancy. But that's kind of what he's preparing for with these vehicles here, and why he's made the decisions he's made with the interior. And so anyway, so that's all interesting. But he said deliveries begin now, which is actually very refreshing considering every other electric vehicle that's been revealed is like, this is coming in 15 years. Pre-order one now. Whereas this is actually like, you can buy it now. I mean, there's probably a long wait list, and there will be one, I'm sure, for some time. But, they did say they plan to build 1,000 Plaids each week by next quarter. So, I guess they'll catch up to the demand pretty quickly if they can actually turn them out that fast. Pricing currently starts at $129,990. And so, $130,000 too for something that will outrace anything, is pretty wild as well. And so this also should really reinforce the supercar companies, like, forget 0 to 60 times, forget all that kind of stuff. The Tesla has you beat for $130,000. There's no way these, Ferrari, any of these people can touch that for that same price point. And so if you're worried about stoplight drag races, get a Tesla and be done with it. All these companies, I hope that they really start to focus on the experience, not being the fastest thing out there, and just about the fun. That's the same thing I always keep saying about the BRZ and the 86. It's, if you want to beat everyone at a red light, buy a Tesla and be done with it. And this just reinforces that with this thing being so insane. Anyone will lose, even if you're in a Bugatti Veyron, up until 200 miles per hour. It's going to be that insane. So anyway, wild stuff there from Tesla, and bravo Tesla. Might not be how I would do it, but they're doing very impressive stuff, and so you got to respect it. Lincoln this week has also teased their new electric vehicle that's going to be coming with a single image here. It looks pretty cool from what we can see so far. It's going to be arriving next year, and they said it'll be based on a new electric platform, but not the Mach-E's platform. So it's going to be something different. They didn't say whether it's going to be the same thing that they're working on with Rivian, because they had that partnership in the past. I think that went away. I don't know if this is something unique in-house with Ford or what. But anyway, it's going to be the first of 4 fully electric vehicles they plan to put out by 2030. And by 2030, they also plan to have their entire lineup fully electrified, they say. So that's their plan there. Polestar this week also revealed a teaser here for the Polestar 3, which is their first SUV and their first vehicle to be built in the U.S. Of course, Volvo builds vehicles, but Polestar doesn't yet. So they described this new vehicle as an aerodynamic electric performance SUV, and it's going to be getting production next year. So this will be coming, fairly quick. So I'm guessing we'll see some type of reveal for it towards the end of this year. All these electric vehicles that are coming next year, I'm assuming they're all going to be revealed at the LA Auto Show in November. That's going to be like the big show where everyone's like, hey, look, everyone, there's our new electric vehicle. And so that would be my guess, but we'll have to wait and see. Other electrified stuff. Jeep posted a picture on Facebook that Jeep experts quickly dissected on the Jeep Gladiator forums and pointed out several different things about this picture and how it's actually a teaser, even though it doesn't seem like one on the surface. So at first glance, you can see the power gauge on the right side along with Rubicon 4xe spelled out in the middle there. But when they look closer, they notice that there's a button on the left for bed lights that you only get on the Gladiator. And there's also a vertical roll bar, which is only on the Gladiator and the two-door Wrangler. But this picture shows 4 power window switches there, which means it's not a two-door Wrangler, and so therefore has to be the Gladiator. This all confirms the Jeep is teasing a Gladiator 4xe, and so, it only makes sense with, the Wrangler having it. I'm sure they want to maximize, the efficiency of, having it spread out and, bring the cost down for this stuff by having more volume here. So, putting it on the Gladiator makes total sense, and also is something that could really benefit the Gladiator, I'm sure. Especially considering, you're still just stuck with, if you want something more powerful, you get the diesel engine. Otherwise, you still have the V6, which isn't a great experience in the Gladiator. It just feels like it always needs a little bit more punch. And so this should provide that until, hopefully, fingers crossed, they also do a 392 version of the Gladiator. We'll have to see. But I think, since they're copying all the Wrangler powertrains, why not copy the 392 as well? Hopefully they do that someday. But in the meantime, I think the 4xe is going to be great whenever they do finally reveal it. But who knows when that's going to officially be announced. But interesting to see that. Mazda also talked about their electrification strategy this week. So they announced a new Skyactiv multi-solution scalable architecture that will be the basis for 5 new hybrids, 5 plug-in hybrids, and 3 fully electric vehicles that will all be arriving between 2022 and 2025. So for someone who hasn't talked at all about electrification, really, to come out of the gate here with all this new stuff just coming in the next 3 or 4 years is actually really impressive. Like I said, Lincoln's like, 2030 we'll have electrified stuff. Mazda's got, basically 13 vehicles coming here in the next, 3 or 4 years. That's really impressive for a company as small as Mazda. Now, they did say that, the regular hybrid tech will come from Toyota. So expect, similar stuff to what you get in like a RAV4 hybrid or something like that. But, considering Mazda has no hybrids currently, that's going to be a huge help to their fuel economy averages and stuff. And they also did say that, they're going to be having the MX-30 coming. That's going to be their first electrified vehicle here. It's coming towards the end of this year. For certain markets, I think it's a slow rollout. But but that's another thing. I think that's separate from the 13 other models they're talking about here. And so that's, again, on this new platform. They also added there's also going to be a new fully electric platform architecture here that they're working on, with vehicles from that platform arriving between 2025 and 2030. And so by 2030, their goal is to have their whole lineup be electrified, which means the Miata is getting electrified at some point as well. But they also say 25% of global sales will be fully EVs. So, they're not going fully electric, anytime soon, but they're going to have a good chunk and have that offering there for people who do want that electrified stuff. But we do know, they're working on a brand new straight 6 engine and all kinds of other stuff. So, this isn't like they're getting rid of gas engines. Clearly, they're working on a brand new one. They're going to keep it around for probably at least the next 10 years. They're spending all this money working on it. Even if it is going to be shared with Lexus, they're still going to have to pay that motor off. So there's still going to be lots of gas-powered Mazda stuff with a sweet straight 6 engine as well, I might add. But so don't be too worried. But if you do want the electrified stuff in a Mazda, you're going to have lots of options here in just the next few years. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the new Miata, if they're going to be electrifying that as well at some point to keep it light. That's going to be tricky. I'm guessing it'll be the lightest amount of hybridization they can do, possibly. But we'll have to wait and see. And, maybe they'll do some type of fully electric thing and just have a really small range or something. Who knows? They're not afraid to do a small range vehicle. The MX-30 does, I think 110 miles of range or something. But anyway, we'll have to wait and see on all that. But, yeah, interesting to hear that. Speaking of plug-in hybrids, though, Lexus revealed their first plug-in hybrid this late last week, actually, the NX 450h Plus, along with other versions of the all-new NX here. So the NX is on the same TNGA-K platform as the RAV4, and so it gets that top plug-in hybrid trim from the RAV4 Prime, which is great news. If you watch my RAV4 Prime review, I'm a big fan of the RAV4 Prime, and so having this in nicer Lexus packaging is going to be really, really cool. So it uses that same powertrain, meaning you get a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder combined with electric motors front and back for 302 horsepower total and a 0 to 60 time of around 6 seconds. Now, since it is heavier, it's going to be a little bit slower than the RAV4 Prime. It also does a little bit less range. It only does 36 miles of all-electric range instead of the 42 you get with the RAV4 Prime. But still, when you compare this to stuff like, for example, Volvo XC60 T8 with their plug-in hybrids, I think those do like 22 miles of range. So you're still blowing that out of the water with this, and there's very few other plug-in hybrids in this segment. You do have like BMWs and Audis, but they have way less range than this as well. So this is still going to be the king of, those, and very awesome that they're offering that. Interestingly, there's also 3 other powertrains available, so it's kind of wild. They're offering so many options here. So the base NX 250 uses the regular RAV4's 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, naturally aspirated for 203 horsepower, 184 pound-feet of torque. And then moving up to the NX 350 gives you a brand new 2.4 liter turbo 4-cylinder that does 275 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque. That's a really impressive amount of power. I mean, a little bit more power than what you get, with the average X3 and stuff like that. That gives you the standard all-wheel drive too, which is great, and should be a pretty punchy motor. Both those engines are going to be using an 8-speed automatic transmission. Then there's the NX 350H, which does drop down a little bit with power because it just uses the RAV4 Hybrids powertrain, which means you have that 2.5 liter 4-cylinder combined with an electric motor for 239 horsepower, and that gives you standard all-wheel drive as well, since that rear end is just electrified in those hybrids, and so that's how that works. And then you have that 450H Plus is the top model, and that along with the regular hybrid one both use CVTs, which is totally to be expected. The rest of the NX is all new as well here, and I think the styling definitely plays it safe for Lexus, which is kind of a change. Usually they're really bold with their styling. I mean, this is still has the bold grille and stuff, but I think it just basically looks like an SUV version of the IS in a lot of ways. I think it looks pretty good, and I don't think it's going to upset too many people. And again, the NX is the bread and butter right alongside the RX, so they really can't go too crazy with the styling here on this. I think they made it safe, but I think they also made it look very good, so I have no complaints with that. The inside's all new as well, of course, and it's impressive. Aside from it has a small little digital gauge screen. It's only a 7-inch digital gauge cluster, and with Audi and BMW and the huge digital gauges those offer, to basically put in the same gauge cluster you get in a Toyota Corolla, is just kind of a shocker. I was really scratching my head when I saw that. I was like, really? Like, this vehicle is super high tech, brand new, and you're not going to do a full width display there? It's kind of surprising. So instead you have a little more old-fashioned bar style readouts there for your fuel and temp, and then just a little digital thing in the middle there. But anyway, the other screen doesn't disappoint. It's really kind of bizarre. You have a tiny little outdated screen on the gauges and then a huge super futuristic thing in the middle there. So that's a new 14-inch touchscreen that runs brand new infotainment software that was developed in America for the first time for Americans and how they use infotainment and stuff. They say that was kind of part of the disconnect with the old system, is it was built in Japan, and the way that those customers used infotainment interfaces was different. And so Lexus of America here was just kind of stuck with that kind of same thing, and so they actually were able to take control of the infotainment experience here for the NX and develop it really for an American buyer. And so that's why you have this change here that's really should be pretty impressive. Now, I could probably do an entire video on that new infotainment system, and maybe I will whenever I get an NX to review. But in the meantime, it's very, very advanced. It is not an Android-based system. It is developed in-house. It's completely, they did everything themselves, and from the demos, it looks like it should be pretty easy to use and should work pretty well. It has all the intelligence stuff and all the integration stuff. It has wireless smartphone integration, all that. And thankfully, though, it does retain physical knobs for climate controls, and brilliantly, they actually have a center-mounted volume knob to provide easy access for passengers, just like how Beth and I were complaining about in the Tucson interior review this past week. So I'm very excited. I'm sure that a lot of passengers will very much appreciate having a center-mounted volume knob. It just makes sense when the driver has controls right on the steering wheel anyway. So I think that's brilliant that they did that. It's important to note, though, that screen is optional. So the base screen, though, is really still very impressive. It's a 9.8-inch touchscreen in the base model still. So that's still going to blow most of the other stuff out of the water and be very, very good. We don't have any pictures, though, I don't think, of that base screen. But anyway, they all have wireless smartphone integration, like I said, which is great that you have that. It also does have Alexa integration, all those types of things. And then there's also other things on the interior. There's 64 color ambient lighting, a head-up display that's available, digital rearview mirror, all kinds of other tech features, of course. But I won't go too much into that. I'll save that for the actual review. But it'll be going on sale this fall, but they don't have any pricing released for that yet. So we'll have to wait and see how it lands. But it should be pretty close to the previous NX. They're not going to want to upset that buyer by raising prices too much. So yeah, but interesting to see that. Subaru this week has revealed the refreshed 2022 Forester in Japan. So it gets a new little headlight design there. It's a little bit of a smaller headlight. Looks a little bit sharper. The front end's a little bit taller and bolder with the grille there on the front bumper. But it's hard to tell anything else because we don't have any pictures of the back end. We don't have any extra information, just a few pictures here. And so we'll have to wait for the full US reveal, I guess, for more info on it. But they did say it's going to have a retuned suspension along with the next generation of the EyeSight technology, which they say uses a wider angle camera so you can see more of the road, and the processor processor behind it all is more advanced as well and faster. So hopefully it's a little less glitchy and stuff. I just hope that they change it so it doesn't beep at you constantly whenever you're even getting close to the lanes. But anyway, yeah, hopefully get more US details on that soon. What Subaru did reveal for the US this week, though, was the new Onyx package for the Ascent for 2022. So like the other Onyx models, it blacks out all the trim and uses the synthetic star text material for the seating surfaces. You get faux carbon fiber trim pieces and stuff. It sits above the premium model, but below the limited, and does add some nice features, though, beyond the premium. So you get a heated steering wheel, keyless access, and power tailgate with this Onyx trim, and it'll be available in several colors as well as black, so it's not just black for the exterior. You can get all kinds of other colors, and it'll be starting at $37,995. So cool to see that. Kia has also made a few changes to the Telluride for the 2022 model year. So probably the most notable change here is that you get a new Kia logo in the redesigned grille there. Otherwise, the styling has stayed the same. It also starts about $600 more than last year, but in exchange, you get much better standard equipment. The 10.25-inch touchscreen is actually now standard, as is the new front and rear auto climate controls. Those are all standard, and also highway drive assist. The adaptive cruise control system is now standard as well. So for $600 to get, the auto climate control, to get that huge, really nice screen and adaptive cruise, that is a bargain, and should make the base and lower versions of the Telluride much more compelling, because previously it seemed like a lot of people wanted to go for those top trims. Maybe they still will, but now it's like, okay, well, we can kind of live with, a little bit less features here, and, still have a really nice Telluride even in those base trims. And yeah, the higher trims don't get any other changes, by the way, and mechanically it's all the same as well. It's going to be starting to arrive at Kia dealers in the next few weeks, actually, so should be coming pretty quickly, and so cool to see that. Toyota this week has also teased the iForce Max engine that'll be powering the next generation Tundra. There's no info to really go along with just the picture there, but we can infer it looks like it's going to be a V6 based on the way they designed the engine cover there. And like I mentioned last week with the Land Cruiser debut, it seems likely that they'll be using this same engine from the Land Cruiser in the Tundra, meaning it's a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 that does 415 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque. We'll see if that's what the Tundra gets or not. There's also rumors of hybridization with that truck, and hopefully we don't have too much longer to wait. We'll have to see if this is the only engine you're going to be able to get, if the V8 will still be an option, or if that's going away completely, or what ends up happening here with the Tundra. But yeah, so interesting to see that. In the meantime, speaking of vanishing V8s, though, South Korean website Dom is claiming Hyundai's V8 will soon be going away. So it's already been dropped from the Kia K9, which is the K900. That's already been going straight to the twin turbo V6. And even here at the K900, we only got the V6. So that's no news there. But the report claims that the refreshed Genesis G90, which is the last holdout with that V8, that will also finally get rid of the V8 and only offer the 3.5-liter twin turbo V6, along with eventually offering an electric version too. But yeah, they claim that the G90 is gonna, that'll be it, and that'll be the end of that engine, which has served for, I think, over 10 years now. So I mean, it's been a good motor for them, but like everything else, just hard to justify, especially in luxury vehicles. They also say this new G90 will be getting rear-wheel steering for the first time too, which would be cool. So we'll have to wait and see if that actually turns out to be true. For those that do love their V8s, especially in their full-size GM SUVs and trucks, but hate the stop-start system, there's good news this week for you. GM is actually removing the start-stop tech from the Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon, Escalade, Silverado, and Sierra models due to the chip shortage. So this isn't going to be a long-lasting thing, but it enables them to continue building these trucks and remove a feature that most people probably disable in these vehicles anyway. And so yeah, any 5.3-liter V8 or 6.2-liter V8s built from June 7th and onward will not have the system until further notice. There's not going to be any kind of retrofit either, so if you get one without that system, you're never going to have stop-start in your vehicle, which, again, I think most GM truck buyers probably are pretty happy about, honestly. And to add on to the good news, you actually get a $50 discount off the MSRP of the vehicle as well, because you don't have that feature. Now, GM does say you may experience a minor reduction in fuel economy, but again, you're buying a full-size V8 powered massive behemoth. You probably don't care about losing a tiny bit of fuel economy either. So, Yeah, and I think that's actually probably good news for most buyers of these vehicles, and maybe those ones will be more sought out, down the road because it's one less button press. You don't have to constantly turn that system off, and so yeah, I think that's some good news there this week as far as the whole fight for the V8 goes. Lastly, though, Honda, interestingly, this week just announced that the Clarity will be ending production this summer. And they say they're going to have enough supply to last them into 2022 because, again, these sell so slowly. And so, I mean, the styling, is polarizing for sure, and maybe that's why it never sold well. In addition to, there's being low demand for plug-in hybrid sedans. Also, there was the much better looking and cheaper Honda Insight, which still, got fuel economy into the 50s. So even people who did care about good fuel economy, probably were pretty happy with the Insight, even though you could get, the all-electric range of the Clarity, which was, going to be even better. But regardless, I think, Honda, like in many other cases with Honda, they're a little bit too far ahead of the curve. And, this is something that, you're going to see, like I've just mentioned in this weekly update. Everyone's doing these plug-in hybrid vehicles, maybe not sedans, but plug-in hybrid everything. And Honda's been doing it for years and no one wanted it. And because of that, I guess they're killing it off. But it's kind of surprising that they're getting rid of it now with everything else being more and more electrified. I would think that, it's already been around, like maybe just give it a heavy restyling, try and save it that way, make it more mainstream. With the styling, and maybe that would have helped because then you basically have a development-free plug-in hybrid sedan ready to go. You can just continue it in the lineup, but maybe there's some other stuff behind the scenes as for why they got rid of the Clarity. But yeah, going away this summer, and yeah, so a little bit of a bummer it never took off. I drove one very briefly a few years back, never did a video on one, but they're kind of interesting. I personally think all plug-in hybrids are pretty cool, and so it's kind of a bummer that's going away, but maybe Honda will have something new to replace it down the road. But yes, that's it for all the news this week, guys. So thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts and everything in the comments below. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.